Okay, right now let's talk about design sprints. So I'm Olivier and I design a mobile application. I've been designing mobile application for a while now, so I'm fairly aware of all the design problems that we could have, and that's what I'd like to share with you. And I think design sprints propose a very good solution to many of the problems that we can face when we design digital products. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this. So first, I'd like to give you a little bit of history of how design sprints have been invented and by whom. So the guy responsible for this process is called Jake Knapp. Is a brilliant designer, a brilliant designer of digital products. He used to work for Microsoft and then for Google Ventures, and finally right now he sells his book, and I believe it's working very well for him. No, but this guy is very brilliant, and when he tells the story about design sprints, it's very interesting. He goes back to 2001, so that's quite a long time ago, and it's very funny because at that time they were designing softwares that once developed were published and sold as CD-ROMs. So that's a bit funny because when we think about this right now, it looks like very, very old. What are CD-ROMs, by the way? And so yeah, and he was working for Microsoft at that time on the Encarta Encyclopedia project. And it's funny because he tells the story and he says at that time a brand new product had just appeared on the encyclopedia market, and this product is Wikipedia. And obviously at that time Encarta Encyclopedia was the leader, and what was this Wikipedia thing that was bumping here, and they didn't know a lot about it, and obviously they couldn't anticipate the success of Wikipedia, but still they felt a kind of threat in this Wikipedia product, so they started to think about how they could change completely their Encarta Encyclopedia product so as to beat this Wikipedia product. And all the designers at Microsoft worked very hard on this, and they came up with a very gorgeous UI, you know, with things that were moving in 3D, and you could navigate in the encyclopedia in a way that was like very wow. And they took about 1 year to develop this. And at the end, they had to struggle with the marketing guys who didn't want to highlight and to emphasize a lot the brand new UI that they had built on top of the encyclopedia. So, long story short, they took a lot of time to develop a product that failed totally, because we all know the story, and we all know that right now Encarta doesn't exist anymore, actually. And what's very funny about that is that if you search for Encarta Encyclopedia on Google, the first entries that comes up is the Wikipedia page of the Encarta Encyclopedia that tells you Encarta Encyclopedia was something that was supposed to. Anyway, so this has been a little bit of a trauma for this guy at that time, and since then he started to think of how we could have done it better, because one of the ideas they had at Microsoft back in 2001 was to put all the content of the Encarta Encyclopedia online, available for everyone on internet for free. Obviously they didn't do that, but what would have happened if they had tested this idea? Maybe it would have totally changed the way Wikipedia works right now, and maybe it would have totally changed, yes, the way we are using it. So yeah, it's been really, how to say it, he's been really thinking very hard about how he could have changed things and how he could have tested things quickly. And probably, change the way things happened. So then he changed work in 2007. He went from Microsoft to Google, and then he started to work for Google Ventures actually. So he started to work with many startups, and he's been really obsessed about how we could solve big problems faster than what we do. At the end of the day, he came up with an idea that was trying to enforce a process that would be very, very time pressurized, so as to make sure that you could deliver things and learn things about a new product or a new idea that you would have much quicker than what it would take to actually build a product. And that's the way he tells about it right now. I don't know if you guys know the Lean Startup book, which has been for a while kind of the Bible for startuppers. So the idea is try to have a much faster way of shipping new features or new product by inventing the concept of minimum viable product. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but the idea is really to build a product which is the minimum product that you need to test hypotheses on your market or on your business or on your users or on anyone, but trying to build the minimum product so as to test it and to get feedback and to iterate and to make your product better. And what Jake Knapp is saying is that the problem with that is everyone has a different idea of what is a minimum product, and a minimum viable product always turns out to be a very big product. And it turns out to be always a very long process. And it takes months before releasing a first version of a product. And that is a problem, because during all this time, you don't learn about your market, about your users, about your customers. So this guy has totally shortcut the building process. And what are design sprints, according to him, is a way of basically avoiding the build and launch process that you would have in a product lifecycle, and just go from an idea to learn, test it, and then idea to test, and so on. So that's for the big picture. If you have any question or if you want to add anything, please go ahead, because as I told you, I'm not an expert in design sprints, so it's okay. Okay, so thinking about this.
There is a question.
Yes.
How do you learn about an idea?
Thank you, Quentin. That's a perfect transition. So
It's for you, Quentin.
how do you? Okay, so the way this guy tried to, so obviously that was the target, being able to learn from an idea directly without building a product. And the way this guy approached this problem is basically, first he tried to time pressurize it. So he says, okay, we don't have time to build a product, so let's keep it very short. Let's keep it in 1 week. So that's the first principle of the design sprint. It has to be very short. It could be 1 week. It could be even shorter than that, actually. So people are doing design sprints in even 3 days, or I'm pretty sure it could be done also in 1 day if we wanted to. So then, starting from, okay, it has to be 1 week, he started to think of what could be the perfect week for to test a product. What is the perfect flow I would use to, and what are the minimum steps I need to go through to be able to test an idea? And he came up with this process. So it's very detailed, and in this book he tells you everything on what to do at 9 a.m., what to do at 10 a.m., what to do at 11 a.m., and when to go to the restroom, and when to have your lunch break, and so on. So I won't go through all those details right now, but this is the main idea, and this is the perfect week, according to him, to be able to test an idea. So first day, you will basically try to understand the problem you are trying to solve. The second day, you will try to sketch some solutions. The third day, actually on the second day, you will sketch many solutions for the problem. The third day, you will decide which ones you will actually try to understand better and to refine. The fourth day, you will build a prototype to finally be able to test it on the last day with real users, real customers, real anyone who's supposed to use the product. So I will try to get you through all those steps in a little bit more details, but and once again, feel free if you want to add anything. But the first thing first is how to set up the design sprint. What is the stage for the design sprint? How do you want to start? So first thing is to get a diverse team, and that's very important to him. And typically, his example as Encarta Encyclopedia is a very good example. They were developers and designers, and they worked on the UI for almost 1 year, a very complicated UI, but that was very nice. And at the end of the day, the marketing guy tells him, "Oh, sorry, but I can't put this on top of the box that we are selling, on top of the CD-ROM box, you know. I will put something else. I will put..." And he was very disappointed. And here, the idea is there are actually big gaps between a marketing guy and a product engineer guy, obviously. So the idea is trying to get a team as diverse as possible with as many roles as possible so as to get the voice from everyone. Then you have to find the right room. So here, the idea of this design sprint is really to be all together for 1 week, and not to be in different rooms and using Google Meet to call or phone or whatever. The idea is to be all together so as to work as a team and not as individuals. Okay, no, you have to find a room, and you have to be. This room must be dedicated to the design sprint and nothing else. And that's very important as well. You must clear your agenda for 1 week. You must leave your phone almost at the entrance of the room, and everyone must be very dedicated to the process for 1 week. It's short, it's 1 week, but it's an intensive week. The diverse team, so the team must be diverse, but also not too large. And what he says is a typical number of people for the team will be 6 people.
Okay.
So yeah, you probably can't run this process being like 20 or 30 people. I don't think it would be too messy, you know. Okay. So and the idea here is if you have like 30 people who want to get in your design sprint, then typically you would refuse them and keep only 6 people as diverse as possible, and then use the other one who wanted to participate in your design sprint to actually test and interview them and so on. Okay, and then create time pressure. So that's again the 1 week sprint. This is very important. You are forced to deliver something at the end of the week or at the end of the sprint, and that's what will actually create the spark that would allow to really be productive. Okay, so then let's go a little bit more in the details of what it is. So first on Monday, so typically you would run it from Monday to Friday, 5 days. The idea of the Monday is to understand the problem and to map the problem. Okay, so for this you would typically use persona techniques, UX technique. Are you familiar with that? Okay, we'll go and then you will try to let me go through this. So first thing is persona. So here the idea is to understand who are the users of who are the consumers of your problem. Okay, who will be using your product, and for that typically you will invent virtual people and try to describe them as precisely as possible with regards to their characteristic as a user. So typically if you do an app to to take care of your pet, you will consider the number of cats or dogs or whatever number of pets that Caroline, Elsa, Boris and so on have. So you would invent virtual persona that represent different kinds of users for your product. And so on internet you can find many persona canvas. where so you have you can define the personality, the expertise, the whatever you want to define of your persona. I don't think it is required to use such a canvas to do this. The idea is more to try to understand who are the different users of your product and what are their characteristics as users of your product. And then for every persona, the idea is to be able to actually complete this sentence, this very basic sentence. My persona is and you define their characteristics, who needs a way to do something, and this is where your problem, because he values, I don't know. So let's take the example of Uber, for example. You could imagine that Uber is something that is a service that is used by businessmen who are in business trip. So Hervé, for example, is a typical businessman. So he's he's always in a hurry, and he needs a way to travel. I don't know, take a cab, to book a cab very easily because he values convenience. I don't know, or, you can. So the idea is to be able for every persona to summarize in a very simple sentence who are these people and what makes them specific and what they are expecting from your solution, from your product. Okay, so you did all your persona, you tried to invent your user journey for every persona, what they will do in your product and when and so on. And then the idea is to focus on one piece of the problem. A key moment that you think is very critical to solving the problem you are trying to solve. Okay, and for this very key moment, you will write this sentence. So you will redesign something, the key moment, to improve the experience of a user that you will select because they value. And here again, here you continue because they value whatever you want them to value. So the idea is to be able here to focus on one key problem and to decide within that day what is the key moment of the users using your product that will make them satisfied of your product, that will make them basically use your product or not. Is it okay? Am I clear? Or? Okay, and then for all the sprints, for all the rest of the sprint, you will focus on this very key moment, on this very key feature or part of your product. That's also at that time that you would decide for your product of a name and probably a logo, an icon, or whatever. It's time, once you've defined all your persona, your user journey, and so on, you have enough idea of what is it that you are trying to solve. To be able to define a name and a logo of your product, and then it will help you a lot once you have those elements when you want to show up your products, when you want to demo it. And then finally, you can, on Monday, also ask all the people that wanted to join the sprint but couldn't because the team is limited in terms of slots. So you could typically organize interviews with all the people, all the stakeholders, all people who will probably use your product or not, and will probably use your product and so on. Okay, then the second day. So you decide of a key moment that you will redesign, something that you would redesign, and right now it's time to sketch it and to figure out solution and to figure out what would the solution look like. And the idea on Tuesday is to diverge, actually, is to explore many different ideas that you may have as a team prior to converge on Wednesday. And to do this, there is one process which I really like. It's called the Crazy 8. Do you know about this process? So it's very funny. It's a way of producing many mock-ups or drawing sketches of a product in a very, very short amount of time. So this is something that we've done actually today, here, in this very room. And this is the result of only 6 guys working for about an hour. And we came up with many ideas, many mock-ups of mobile applications. So the way it works is very simple. You have 40 seconds to design a screen, and this being a screen, only this. And so here you have 4 screens, 4 different screens. And it's called Crazy 8 because you would typically use a A4 page that you would split in 8, and you would design 8 mockups in 8 minutes on this page, okay? And what's interesting about that is, so once again, it's very time pressurized, but what's interesting is if you run like regular brainstorming, the problem with regular brainstorming is that people who speak loudly or people who are very good sellers will always sell the rest of the group their ideas. And people who are more introverted people will typically step down and not show up their idea or speak up their ideas. And that's a problem Jake Knapp wanted to tackle, giving people opportunity to draw mockups, everyone for himself, and everyone by himself, and then being able to show up all the others. What are the results of this? So it's not exactly brainstorming, as in we are not thinking of a mockup or a sketch all together, but it's really everyone on his own at the beginning, and we take time for everyone to do something, to draw something, and then finally we share and we put everything in common. And the idea, after having designed many mockups on his own, I mean everyone on his own, the idea is to vote silently. So we just add, so it could be, how do you call this one? Stickers, like very little dot stickers, colored dot stickers, or just with a regular pen like that, it would do. So you give a pen to everyone and you tell everyone, okay, you have n dots to vote. Please just put a dot on something that you like, and don't put dots obviously on mockups that you don't like. And it works very well, because after that you have a large amount of possible user interface, possible products, and then you have a good idea of what's a good idea and what's not. Because I mean, you will see that the dots always goes. I mean, there are a few screens or a few ideas that gets all the dots. So here it's very clear. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, and that's pretty much it. 3 screens, 3 ideas that are worth going forward, and probably all the rest you can forget about them. And that's good actually, because you explored many things, many ways, and then you converge very easily. So that was for the Crazy 8. So here, yes. So on Wednesday, typically, so we did this Crazy 8 thing very quickly today, but usually in a design sprint, you would take more time to draw more sketch and work a little bit more on your own to be able to finally on Wednesday decide. Using typically this dot voting method, it works very well. And the idea here is to be silent when you vote, and that's very important because you don't give a chance to the very good seller of the team who's able to convince everyone, but at the end of the day, it might not reflect what the rest of the people that you don't know think. Okay, so yeah, dot voting, I talk about this. And then finally, yes, you would build your customer journey based on all the different sketches that you build on Tuesday, and based on the one that you retain, you would build your user journey typically on that day. Okay, let me go through this. Okay, then on Thursday, so here the idea is to build a real demo, something based on all the sketches, all the ideas that you had on the previous days. You would build a real demo, at least something that looks real. So you have plenty of techniques to do this. Personally, I know very well techniques about how to build a fake mobile application, so I can tell you a lot about this. So typically I use Sketch and then InVision to actually publish something that could be used on a smartphone just like it was a real application. But there are plenty of other ways. You could use 3D printers to have fake real objects. You could use a fake landing page on the web to test whatever product. there are plenty of ways to fake your product until you make it. And typically, yes, you would build dirty prototypes. You could even use a fake phone with something sketch on it or something like that. It would do, depending on the time you have to actually build your prototype. And then you will prepare for your pitch, for your demo pitch. So that on the last day, on Friday, when you arrive on Friday, first thing in the morning, you are ready to show your prototype to real users and to gather feedback from them. And that's the most important part of the design sprint, is to be able to gather feedback as soon as possible, so within 1 week. And for this, you would run user interviews, typically, and go through demo and so on. So obviously, I don't say it, but I mean, just like it's obvious, but in user interviews, the most important is to let your users or your testers talk, and do not try to justify the way you build stuff. And that's what everybody does, and that's what is totally forbidden if you want to gather real and genuine feedback. And that's it, and that's the last day. And finally, there is one thing which you never want to forget within a design sprint, is to celebrate and to have a good beer. So I'm done. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But, but we can also move to the kitchen, to the pantry, to have a good beer all together. Thank you very much.